Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, a podcast devoted to helping you overcome challenges in your life that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. Each episode features interviews with people from all walks of life about their journey of self-development and the principles they utilize to overcome their fears to achieve their desired outcome. Ready to be enlightened? Here's your host, Ken Primus.
Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. Guys, you know I've been away for a little while and I made a video to update you as to what's happening with my family and on my side. But I love what I do because I feel as this is my assignment to help others outside that are seeking help, seeking answers from their pain, from their journey. So that's why I'm here and I'm so excited. Today we have a wonderful guest and I want him to introduce himself to you. As you know, I would like to first thank them for coming to the podcast because I know that they're coming with a couple of things I deem very expensive. That is their time. AJ, time, valuable stuff, that commodity. Many of us don't understand the power of it, how to use it, how to utilize it. And I can tell someone's life by how they utilize time. It'll expose all kinds of stuff about you and how you think and how you process things. The other thing is that journey, AJ, is powerful creator. Why? Because it created you. And we want to honor you and thank you for coming and sharing both of these precious commodity here with us at Threads of Enlightenment. AJ, again, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Great. Thank you, Ken, for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here and to be with the audience on this special day. I'm AJ Coleman, and I'm known as an individual who contributes as more a resilience mentor. The hardships that I have gone through since my childhood to where I am today at 48 years old, it has been truly remarkable. When I look back and I talk to different people, and people always ask me, like, how do you overcome some of these hardships that you've had, from a loss of a spouse, a disability, loss of a job, loss of faith, and loss of companionship, and being a single dad. Like, the list just goes on and on and on. And what I have learned through this entire journey is sometimes you get put into certain places and times to test you. And when you grow, you elevate your status, right? You can take on more. I've always believed that, God would never put you in a position that you couldn't handle. And it's something that I learned over time to carry with me. And it's really a key to my existence today, how far I've come. But my purpose is to do more. My purpose is to grow with audiences around the world and help them through their challenges, through their setbacks, and give them some tools or at least some positive thoughts that they can consider to help prevail them forward. Because when it's all said and done, who you are is what you bring yourself to be. And I think that's where the most important piece of who we are today is how we want to be recognized. How do we want to be perceived? When you look back at your life, you want to look back with accomplishments, feeling good about what you've done. Yes, we've all made mistakes, but that's how we learn. That's how we grow. And that makes us who we are today. So my purpose is to give back, to share my knowledge, share my experiences, and ultimately challenge others to take their own personal steps forward.
That's awesome. You actually answered my first question, what I always ask is, how do you serve mankind? And you laid it out for all of us to hear, the audience to understand. And we want to go back into that wonderful time machine. I tell people is we can visit that time machine, AJ, via the memory. We can go back into where it all began. And where it all began is that unit that we call the family. That's where we began to receive input data that is going to now be used by us based on some situations that happened to us as a youngin', as the old folks would say to us. And those situations somehow which they're designed. We interpret them. They then become what we believe, a thought we accept, and we manage in our lives and all those type things. How was your family unit like? We call those two individuals parents, but sometimes AJ refer to them as scientists that are going to input into us their thesis, if you will, on life, how they were brought up. And both of them were traumatized from different ways and different venues of life, but yet they came together, and you and I came out and came forward because it was our time. How was your family unit like?
That's a great question. It's really more of a long story. Probably it would take me to the end of time to explain this. But in a nutshell, both my parents grew up very similar in different aspects of life. And the values were very similar to each other, just coincidentally, in terms of how they were brought up in society, religion, and their pathway. But I will say, in our family, and it's interesting that from my understanding, there wasn't a lot of love, there wasn't a lot of warmth shown. And part of that is because when that generation, and we didn't grow up in a house full of that love where parents would say, I love you, I'm proud of you. It was always more like exceeding whatever you're exceeding. And there's a lot of pressure, I think, that were put on them to succeed in their own ways. And when they got together, they found that they had a lot of similar traits. However, I always call it the disease in the family because there is just, unfortunately, a lot of bad blood, a lot of hatred between family members because who said what, who didn't get what they wanted. And what they do is they hold on to those grudges. And I think where that root of that whole family comes from, not only my great-grandparents, my grandparents, to my parents, it gets passed down to me. And I have an opportunity early in life to recognize that and decide if I'm going to carry that tradition or if I'm going to change. And at the time growing up, I didn't know what it was like because this was my own household. I was sheltered in my own little world, and I was always in a position to try to please my parents and to ensure that I fought for recognition. And a lot of that is because my parents were probably fighting for their own recognition and support between their families and their people that they support. And, I will take a step back, if I may. And when I was 3 years old, I was diagnosed with a hearing impairment. And at the time in the late 70s, there wasn't a lot of known facts about it. There wasn't a lot of awareness and education like there is today. And where we lived was in an affluent neighborhood in Chicago, Illinois. And it was looked down on. Like if you had a child or if you had somebody who had a certain disability, you weren't normal. It adds more pressure, right? So my parents felt they had to overcompensate to get certain things, but they also didn't understand what it means to have someone with a hearing impairment. And for them to be perceived a little bit different, it started to cultivate and grow to who I am today. And, growing up, it was a struggle because I didn't understand my hearing impairment. There wasn't anybody I can talk to. And of course, when you grow up, kids say all sorts of weird things, right? And sometimes it sticks with you. So I think with my parents, the root cause is more of that generation. They've always believed that they had to go above and beyond, and they fought for love and respect from their own families. And it kind of got carried into me. But it's funny, I look back now, I'm like completely opposite of my parents. So, I learned early on what I was going to happen and learn through. And it's interesting to see the different dynamics of who I am versus who they are. My mother always tells me, like, who are you? You don't get stressed out like we do on this certain topic. You just go with the chill. You don't make this. You don't seek for forgiveness. You don't seek for any of that. Like, who are you? And I always laugh, and I said, "Well, I'm your son."
Yeah, that's a profound question that mom would throw at you, AJ. And I think that's the question that most of us as adults um, still have to answer that. Who are you apart from some women, apart from your husband, apart from your dad and mom, your parents, apart from your kids, apart from your job, apart from all the outsiders, if you will? Who are you? And so it demands an answer, and that is the answer that you and I forever will be haunted by if you want to go on this path of self-discovery, finding out who you are. Who are you? And it doesn't matter what level you get to, you're still asking that question. And that question will open you and take you deeper. How big am I? And I tell people we are so vast and so powerful that it will take us a while, several lives, to figure out the power of us. Because on the onset, AJ, we talked about, I mentioned to you how I grew up in the church. And I remember in my belief system, God began to command things that he needed to come together to fulfill his purpose. And we call that the creator. And I see the same thing in your life and in my life. We have to do the very same thing to create. We have to step out of the program of less than, you are not this, you are not that, and whatever, and begin to take our place as the creator, the designer of our world, our life on an individual basis. And as we begin to do that, I think that's when we began to affect the others. When God said, "Let there be light, let there be, I need this," and whatever, and there was. And we get an opportunity to see a degree of that in our life. When we begin to call things out, all of a sudden, that individual, that job we needed, whatever we needed, just manifest. And there was. But that process is what we are here to talk about, because many of us don't believe that we have that ability to make that thing happen. So here you are, this young man that has gone through so much, seeing all of the interesting intrication that is dealt within the family and learning of that and understanding some of the generational things that you began to notice, as they say. How did that, AJ, even though your mom was throwing that profound question at you, how did all of that begin to form you? How did you think? How did you begin to relate to others with all of that happening?
When growing up, right, we live in a very sheltered world, most of us, I should say, where we are influenced by our parents and how they interact with us, how they interact with others. And we start to form a perception, oh, this is what we need to do and grow. And at 18 years old, I graduated from high school and went to college. And that was the first time I actually saw what the real world is like. And it was amazing, right? It was like, oh, people are doing this, people are doing that. People can show affection, people can show love, people can say certain things, right? Growing up, we never talked back to our parents, right? When you heard the word no, that was it. It wasn't like a negotiation. In college is where I started to really learn about who I was. And at the time, I was very concerned about my social perception. And as someone who has grown up with a hearing impairment and had to wear hearing aids, I felt different. And I wanted to reinvent myself. And it was interesting because when I went to college, nobody knew. I ditched the hearing aids. I reinvented about who I was. I built my entire perception of who I was, just going out and just living life and having fun, working harder. I had to work a little harder because I couldn't hear everything, but I sacrificed. And as time went by, you start thinking about, is this really the life that I want to live, right? Who I want to be. And in college, it's an amazing experience, right? You discover who you are, what you like, what you don't like. You have great, profound experiences that will take you through the end of time. And we still talk about some of these experiences. But it's where I grew as a person to recognize that the sheltered life that I lived as a kid doesn't have to be like that, where you can go off and explore, you can go off and see different things. And it was really a rewarding time because I loved my college experience. It's still, to this day, something that brings a smile. I mean, this past weekend, I went down to see my alma mater play in Texas, even though we lost. But, I went to see the Gators play. But it's just like the entire time, it's just like bringing back all these memories and just finding joy, right? And I think as you grow, you find where your happiness is, what gets you passionate, and you can hear it in my voice, right? And I think about college, you see the passion in my voice versus, well, I lived a sheltered life, right? And I will say, I think our parents or our mentors, for those that may not have had parents, that they help us. They help us push us off the dock into the sea. And as you continue to navigate around the world, you start formulating different ideas and what you like, what you don't. And the key is finding happiness and in whatever it is that you do. And if you're not if you're not happy with something, it's really up to you to keep searching for. That's why we resign from our jobs. That's why we may decide that our companions may not be the right fit, or we realize we want to go out and increase our financial wealth, right? There's a lot of different things, but everything starts inside with an internal thought, and the experiences and values that we have enable us to take those steps forward, to push us further. And for me, college was really an opening eye experience for me that changed everything I thought about what life was supposed to be like at home. It's just home. That's what makes it special, right? But it doesn't have to be the same every day elsewhere.
Yeah, I tell people everything starts in a thought. Everyone is expecting this big crescendo, lightning and thunder and all the other things that happen are what they're expecting. But it's a thought. Now, what we do with that thought, AJ, is going to dictate the results of what you want. And that's one of the attributes of a creator choice. Most of us live on the default program, meaning we go to sleep, we get up in the morning. If you're programmed to have a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, you're going to be programmed to do that. And then you go brush your teeth, you read the newspaper. Who are programmed that way, those are not. They are operating on their program. And then they jump in the car, they get in the car, they drive to the work and whatever. And again, just automatic program. Repeat, rinse. That's it, how we do it. Very few people step off of that or step out of that routine and become creators like yourself. Creator is one, and everyone, I keep telling people, everyone, the human body, the human being, not body, the human being is designed to meditate. You meditate day in and day out. You don't think you do, but you do. You know, that bill that you're worried about. You know that my life, my this, my that you're meditating on is going to manifest until you want a different picture, a different world. When God wanted a different world, he came on the scene and he saw what was there. And he looked at that and he says, hey, this is some chaos and darkness. He said, I need some other things. And then he began to express what other things he wanted. And that's the same way you and I are going to do it. And AJ talked about his thoughts, the thought coming in. and college being this place where he began to expand himself. Unless he took those thoughts and realized that, hey, I can create new outcome, he would have still been that other individual. And so we want to make you aware that one of the positions or one of the things that you have as a creator is the ability to make choices. Get off of the program, whatever program you're on, and begin to design the process by which you want to move forward. But guess what? It tells us that God created the earth in 7 days. So it took him 7 days to do what he had to do. And there's a verse in the Bible that says a day as like 1,000 years in the eyes of the Lord. So we have dog time, man time. So man time in God's eye is 7,000 years in our time that he did that. So do not expect you to come and have it your way at McDonald's and express this thing and hit that button and think it's going to happen tomorrow. It's going to take you some time. Just keep one step at a time. And I love your title of your book. Just keep moving, man. And so it's a matter of just that. Don't look at what's going on around there. Just keep moving to what you want, because it says he wanted light, he got light. Whatever. He saw light, and you got to see it just like he has, because we are stepping into that creative aspect of who we are. College, you're partying, you're learning, you're expanding, all of that stuff. As you're moving through life and you're heading towards the furtherance of life as far as profession and stuff like that, where did you land, and why did you, how did that profession came about?
Well, my profession today is a little bit different. So I'm in the world. I work for a bank in the financial crimes area, where I spent most of my days hunting down criminals who are committing acts of fraud, terrorism, money laundering, and it's my job to find them and close them down. I would actually, in 2001, right after September 11, here in the US, it was a very dark time, and I had gone for some interviews, and one of them was at a bank, and I didn't really think I was going to go into the world of financial crimes. I thought I would just become a financial analyst, and I had gone to grad school after college, and I learned a lot about data and understood how to, what they call big data, manipulate it, massage it, and then you basically come up with a storyline. And just taking a look at data during an interview, just asking a question that the team was stumped on. Not only was I able to interpret it and answer it, that is pretty much what I gave my, not knowing it was a real life situation. So by the time I got home from my interview, this is back when before I even had a cell phone, and we had answering machines where you actually called and left people a message, and then you tried to call in, and but before I got home, there was already a message waiting for me to ask me when could I start. And again, I didn't go to school to prepare for financial crimes. I went through accounting, marketing, I got my MBA and everything, and I just bumped into it. But I've gone full circle around with the financial crimes world. I've done public accounting, private accounting, all of the forensic work. And the conclusion I come to answer your question is there are moments that we prepare for in life. We spend our time studying, preparing for this certain degree, and we're going to come out there and we're going to make millions of dollars. We're going to change everybody's perceptions in this world. And then we come out and it's nothing that we thought we were going to do, right? I thought I was going to go more into a particular area, but in the world of financial crime, and that goes back to what you were saying earlier, is like we are destined for something bigger, right? And God doesn't want us to stay in one place. And as much as we plan as humans, God has something greater for us. And sometimes it's just getting us to that spot where we need to fulfill that particular goal. Like for me, graduating getting my master's degree, and then starting out in life, but then taking a pivot into saying, you know what, I got better use for you over here. And I'm going to challenge you in this career path. And this is the direction that I want you to go. And what I've learned over those years is, and I've become more religious as years have gone through, then if God has a plan for you, don't fight it. Trust God to put you in the position. And you may not understand it. You may not agree with it. You may question why. But there's a reason way beyond any of our own particular knowledge base that can even conceive that notion. And as long as you put that trust forward, it will carry you through your entire journey, through thick and thin. One of the areas I used to be afraid of was challenges in life, not understanding why. But those challenges are there to put you in place, to make you think, to probably pivot you to another role. But God's telling you, that chapter is done. I want you going this direction. And I want to use you as a person that can influence others. And as you talk about being the creator, it's really understanding what it is that we do. I start my career in one area, I end up in here, right? I grew up in a sheltered environment, and now I'm realizing that environment was great at the time, but that's not who I am. That's not where I want to be. I want to create my own environment. I want to create my own career. And I love what I do on a daily basis. I get up in the morning, I can't wait to work. And sometimes in the evening, I'll find myself working because it stimulates my mind. It stimulates and challenges, at least from the bad actors and the criminals. Like, what are they planning next? What are they doing?
Yeah.
And again, you can hear the passion in my voice. When I get passionate about something, you can hear it.
Yeah.
Every day that we have it's a good day. Every day we wake up.
Yeah. It's a different thing, AJ, because I tell people, find your passion and be passionate about it. When you locate your assignment, you even in many cases have the choice how to die. And I say this because, again, I go back to these 12 gentlemen that Jesus had called. And one of them, he said, one of them was born to go his own way. He just did his thing. We need, there's always those type family people in your life. But many of these guys that went through with him and walked through and sat at his feet, when they came to die, they tried to crucify them standing up. And he said, no, turn me upside down. I don't even worthy. I'm not worthy of that. That's some revelation when these guys, and I always encourage people, when they're listening to a podcast, learn to transition to a hearer of the podcast and the language, the terminology, conversation, because when you become a hearer, you will act on something. But when you're listening, you're going to pass by and miss your appointed time. Now, something was there. There's a seed in there for you. Learn to become an active listener, which is in reality a hearer of the word. And those boys, the scripture says, they will be justified. They will change the world. And what AJ talked about there, that finding your place. I believe when you find your assignment, there's joy there. There's some stuff that is there that is outside, not, it's not in your quote unquote job. And when you're missing things out of your job, it's just because you haven't located your assignment. When you locate your assignment, there's joy there. There's peace there. There's happiness there. There's a ton of stuff. The tangible, untangible, if you will. I tell people, the tangible, untangible, or those who understand what I'm talking about, is sitting there waiting to hug you on a daily basis. No one is saying it's going to be perfect. But what we are saying is that it's there to accompany you, to walk with you as you are moving through living in your purpose, becoming and being purposeful. And so we want to invite you to come and get to that space, get to that place where you get to know who you are, man. It's a wonderful journey. It is not an easy journey. It is a painful, wonderful place to be because you will see some beautiful things about you, how valuable you are, how one of a kind, how unique, and all of these things. And so, as we were talking, having this conversation with AJ, AJ is walking through, but he's acquiring some things that I want to tap into that I keep telling people parts of the tangible or intangible. We start getting some insights and wisdom and knowledge, man, as you go through those dark places. And I want AJ to talk about some of those things that he learned, some of those tools that you brought into your space, AJ. We know that out there in the ether, there's all kinds of wisdom and stuff like that, but the wisdom is out there. But when we take the wisdom and bring it into our space and adapt it to us to gain something the Bible says is one of the most powerful things out there, and that is knowledge. You got to get some knowledge, how to apply that wisdom that is sitting up there and use it in your space, in your life to bring your desired outcome. What were some of those tools, AJ? I know for me, meditation was mine. It saved my life. There are tons of other stuff out there. What was those tools that you started to bring into your space to assist you to navigate from that dark place that you resided to that new location that you wanted to be? What were they, and how did you use them to get to where you need to be?
One of the darkest times in my life is the time that I was most tested, both emotionally, physically, mentally. The day that my wife was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer, and we were just beginning life. Our daughter was born, was 2 months old, and we were both in our early 30s. And I cried privately for a few minutes and brushed myself up and says, whatever the odds are, we are going to beat. I don't care about the money. I don't care about anything else. I care about my wife and the thought of our daughter growing up without a mother terrified me. And during those 14 months that my wife was terminally ill, I was tested not only from my career, my patience. We had to relocate our home. We had to move to a different state. The aspect of, the story of mom, dad raising a child, those intimate moments the first year were all gone. I had to share those moments with others, grandparents, and with others because I had to find a balance between my career, raising a baby, my wife, taking care of her as a primary caretaker, and my wife had limitations from the cancer. And it was during that time where I learned how much I could put on my plate and still carry through. And I refused to give up. The doctors would say, AJ, why are you spending so much money on the treatments? There is no hope. There's nothing we can do. This is a very aggressive form. And I just kept pushing. I kept pushing. I believed that we were going to beat this. When it came to the end, my wife, with those treatments, lived long enough to see our daughter walk. The last image that my wife saw when she was alive wasn't me, wasn't anything else. It was her daughter, and she was able to give her daughter a kiss. And at the time, I didn't know that was really just the beginning of my journey.
Yeah.
And taking those experiences of what I went through with the loss of a spouse, becoming a single dad, and raising a little girl that's 1 year old that needs me, and trying to figure out how to, get the diaper routine, going. It tested me. And it propelled me to the journey where I ended up writing a book about my life and my experiences as someone with a disability, someone who's lost a spouse, being a single dad, and putting that test through. And I didn't know at the time, but my purpose was to take all these experiences and all these setbacks, somehow put it all together into one type of, I guess, and share this with the rest of the world and challenge others, you know, when their spouse or their loved one is on the verge of passing. That's your time to make a memory. That is your time to carry something that's important to them with you and to continue that legacy. Because when you handle what I think death or loss of a loved one or in general, it's all about closure. That's what grief is. It's about closure in life. And there are some people who never get that chance for closure, and it just stays with them through eternity. And it carries a heavy burden on their hearts, and it influences in the reactions when they hear news. It influences their interactions when they meet other people, or even just taking them back to a dark place. And during my wife's illness and ultimately, us losing that battle, I learned that I only have one direction, and that is to keep those feet moving forward. And no matter how difficult it may be, no matter how challenging my days may become, I just knew that's the only way. I'd taken my entire life of the shelteredness to going to college, to going to my work profession, and then as a husband, as a father, and saying, I don't want my life to be defined by all these tragic events. I want to take my life and have it defined as how I was able to move forward and to help inspire, motivate others. And at the same time, understand that we don't meet by chance. We meet by purpose. And it's no coincidence that any of us are here today. And a lot of people think back and say, well, how do you overcome certain things? It changed my entire life. Part of that is just moving forward.
Yeah.
Many of us don't understand the legacies that we do today. It's a legacy that we leave behind for tomorrow.
Yeah, I think, and I sometimes I say this and I humbly say it. Some of us, AJ, are picked to go through, as they say, because God knew that we would be trusted, or faithful is the other word I should use. Faithful to, as he wrote, keep those feet moving, and that's the key right there. So he knew that we would be faithful in that, in keeping those feet moving, because he knows that there's people outside beyond us getting to where we at that needs the information, the knowledge, the wisdom that we gained from it. He affords us the opportunity, and I tell people that we serve, and I use that terminology, servants, and I see servants in restaurants and the local folks who they call the essential workers. We didn't know they were essential workers until COVID hit. So these essential workers, if you will, yourself and others, that are going through and they gain the knowledge and then they put it in a format by which they can serve others so that the others can digest it and go, wait a minute, I see, man, AJ went through it. I can do it. I can do it. And the language that you expressed in those pages, and my audience know how I feel about books, and we're going to put everything for you guys to get access to AJ, to buy his books, offer it to friends. We know that there's many people are going through some difficult times because of last things that are happening in the world politically, from all the different races and creeds and so forth. And so there's a troubling time, and well, some of us have gone through some similar pains and so forth, and AJ has his. Purchase the book. You know someone that's going through pain similar to what he did, losing his spouse due to cancer and all of these different things, his disability and all of these things. Offer them as a present. Show them a little more insight than just some hanging out and going to drink some beer and all those different things that just cater to the flesh and the outside and not to the inner being. Offer them some insight, some food, if you will, and partake in that divine introduction into learning who they are. It's a powerful place to be and to be a part of. And so here you are, AJ, single dad. You have to go through all the different things, and that I understand that because I was a single dad myself. And as God begins to steer you, He offers you the opportunity to write the book. You put those things together in pages and so forth. And usually when you put all those things together, he's still not finished with you. There's this thing that continues. And I tell people, when you have this inside that you are not, that is restless, that's when God is trying to tell you, I need you to keep moving. This stream, this location where you're at is, I need you to move on from here. And that comfort that we have sometimes there is difficult to move us through. And sometimes if we get too comfortable, he has to create situations that will make us a little uncomfortable so we can get the heck out of there, as my sons would say. Get the heck out of there, Dad. So as you wrote the book and he begins to move you on, talk to about that, because there's a degree of surrendering. I keep telling everyone that we have to surrender constantly wherever we are. From one to move to the next deeper level, surrender must take place so that you can shed whatever you need to do in order to move to there. Talk to us a little about those locations of surrendering, AJ, that you were brought to when you realized that it's a wall that only you and I see. Didn't understand that the blessing is right beyond that wall. But sometimes we just hang on, man. Talk to us about those locations, one or two of those locations, and how you eventually let it go, as they say.
The book itself was the first time, and it's been released almost 2 years from now, ago, was really the first time that I've ever accepted that I had a hearing impairment. My entire life, I've always worked hard to stay in the mainstream in fear of the social ramifications, career ramifications, the loss of the ability to maybe get promotions if somebody knew I had a disability. And that book was really that defining point of my acceptance and saying, okay, I'm openly talking about something that I have fought so hard to keep quiet and was ashamed. And again, a lot of that because I didn't go through the proper counseling and the awareness training when I was young to understand what happened, how it happened, what to expect later in life. So a lot of that's just the denials, right? And that's the kind of where we grew up and the pain my parents had. And where I'm at today is not only am I able to talk about how to compensate with a disability, how to overcome a loss of a loved one, not necessarily forgetting about the person, but keeping their legacy alive and getting that closure that I worked so hard to get, not knowing it was going to come to me. And then having the ability to come out and share my story and to help others who may be feeling similar path. And again, grief is, everybody looks at grief and saying, well, it's always about a loss of a loved one. But grief is so much more than that. It's about a loss of something that is near and dear to who you are. It could be, like I say, a job, your faith. It could be just a companionship or even just a loss in general. And I agree with you. When we become too comfortable, that's when God throws us another challenge and say, I want you to take everything that you've learned, everything that I've taught you. I want to see how you're able to navigate through this water. And I may have seen a lot, experienced a lot, but I also know that my journey is going to continue and I'm going to be tested each and every day. And the best way I can answer, how do you overcome? How do you keep those feet moving? Is you have to find it deep within yourself. And at the time, you can prepare, you can speculate, you can say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But when something happens, and then we wonder why we didn't rise up, we just sank further down, is because we don't have all those tools. And those tools that we need to move forward with come alive within you. And that is really the secret to any of our success. You ever wonder why you're able to cram for an exam and then ultimately pass the exam and you're like, oh my gosh, right? Because something alive came within you that pushed you. And there are times where we fight so hard not to let it come alive, right? No, I'm going to mourn this person because I am upset with the world. I'm upset that this happened. You're suppressing that. And what happens from there, it tears apart your body, it tears apart your mind. And ultimately, if you let it sit long enough, it becomes who you are. But as we go through, the secret is just whatever's inside you, let it come alive and let it propel you forward. Because, man, I'll tell you, if you let that happen, you go places you never thought about going. Things happen for every good. For every bad thing that makes, I believe there are 2 or 3 things that follow in succession that's going to be wonderful. It might be small, right? It might be an upgrade of first class. It may be an upgrade, at the, for a seat at a game or something like that, right? That's passing the test. That's allowing your spirit to take over. And I think that's where we grow and move forward to.
Yeah, I hope you guys, again, as I said earlier, you're listening intently. And that simply means you're hearing what has been said. And what has been said is food to help you grow, help you come out of where you're at. And AJ has a happy ending, as they say in all the good movies. You guys are familiar with the Disney movies. They have their little formula and everyone has their formula. As you go through life and you've gone through your testing and stuff like that, God looks at your heart because he said he'll give you the desires of it. Because he knows what's inside there. And a lot of times he put it there for you because he knows you want it and you need it. So you have to allow him, give him the space to make it happen. And AJ, God had brought someone new in his life. And, he's enjoying life. And so you guys, the journey is difficult. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you, man. That's not my purpose. It's designed to be that way, but it's also designed to introduce you to you and designed for you to come out, and it's designed for you to be blessed, and it's designed to make you happy and to find your purpose, all of that stuff, but it's going to be messy. But we have folks like AJ that have been through the forerunners, and we're going to provide everything for you guys to get access to him. The forerunners, those are those that have gone through the forest, I tell people. They have located some of those dark spaces, those little holes that you're not familiar when you get into a depression. He was there. He knows how to come out from that space because he was there. So you can be guided out of that. How do you do that? Buy his books, get his books, get into his space. We're going to provide all those things. So as you begin to read and see that this happened to him and this is what he did, I can apply those principles and I can move through my pain. I can go to the other side because with his knowledge and his insights and stuff like that, he's now able to guide you faster than how it took him. And when you are in your book, I tell people, approach the book of something that holds treasure in there. And through your knowledge and reading and listening and opening your heart, your treasures will pop open and you'll get your desired outcome. I just want to thank you, man, AJ, for coming. I know we haven't even started on a lot of things, and I've kept you almost an hour already. But I want to thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment. And again, we're going to provide all those things for them, man, because the title of his book, at least one of them, is Keep Those Feet Moving. And trust me, stagnation is not a good thing. If you look in nature, you'll see anything that is stagnant. There is bugs. There's danger in those places. You don't want that. You keep moving and you will find your destination every day. One step will take you further than doing nothing. It's okay to, the journey is not constantly, sometimes we fall down. Sometimes you cry a little. Sometimes you're bruised up. But the key is keep those feet moving. Keep it moving, man. I'm telling you, you will be successful. Again, AJ, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment, man.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It's been an honor, man.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.